Hey, welcome back to Album April. It's April 20th, and today I listened to Elephant by the White Stripes. The White Stripes were a rock duo because there were only two of them, so it kind of feels weird calling them a band, composed of Jack White and Meg White. And the two of them have a very interesting dynamic with each other because when the band started, they were married, but then they got divorced, but they decided to stay friends and remain together as the White Stripes for many years to come. And I feel like most people do know one song by the White Stripes, and that is Seven Nation Army. If you have ever been to a sporting event that takes place at a stadium, you have probably heard Seven Nation Army before. And Seven Nation Army is the opening track from this album, Elephant, often called their best. But let me let you in on a little secret about me. I don't like Seven Nation Army at all. I think it's very overrated. It might have something to do with the fact that I was in the marching bands in high school, so I've heard this riff from it 1,000 times at this point. It's just loud and obnoxious to me. And that was the first track on this album. And the second one, Black Math, also is just really loud and obnoxious to me, and I was actually kind of nervous. I was like, oh no, is this what the entire album is going to be like? Another thing to note about the White Stripes is, yeah, it's just two people. And both of the first two songs on this album are Jack on the electric guitar and Meg on the drums. There is no bass here, which can make these songs sound kind of thin. So having these first two songs be ones I didn't like for the same reason I was afraid the entire album was going to be bad. But thankfully things started to change around then and it really picked up. Right after that, we got I Don't Know What to Do With Myself and There's No Place for You Here, which are both really good songs. And then there were a few softer songs too, like In the Cold, Cold Night or I Want to Be the Boy to Warm Your Mother's Heart. I noticed while looking at these song titles, is this like the same system that Fall Out Boy used to name their songs too? But anyway, they were showing a little bit more variety than I got from just the first two songs on their own. Probably the weirdest song on the entire album is Little Acorns because it starts out with a voice that sounds like it belongs in like a how-to video or like a commercial from like the 80s or 90s or something like that. Like a very specific, very deep male voice. Like the Krusty Krab training video, the narrator from that exact type of energy. I have no idea who they got to do that. It's not like credited with like a feature or anything, but whoever it was, they did a good job getting that vibe down. Aside from that song, In the Cold, Cold Night, Meg sings, and the rest of it is all Jack White, with other people like providing backup vocals occasionally. I'm not really a huge fan of Jack White's voice. In fact, the vibe I got is very similar to Morrissey from the Smiths, so not a huge fan. I think out of this entire album, my favorite song might be You've Got Her in Your Pocket. The story that song tells is kind of vague, but I'm definitely getting a strong energy of someone not knowing how much they loved something until it was taken away from them. Overall, I thought that Elephant was good enough. I didn't love it, but there were some decent parts of this album. And there were also a couple songs, namely the first two, that I didn't care for at all, which it was a huge disservice to the rest of the album, in my opinion. Like the fact that my two least favorite songs from the album were the first two songs, that was kind of a problem. But the rest of the songs and the album in general was pretty okay. Alright, thank you for listening. I'll see you tomorrow.